Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today we've got the pleasure of watching Blast from the Asia server playing in their tier 10 Chinese heavy tank. It is the BZ176, and in today's replay you are arguably going to see the greatest game of all time in a tier 8 vehicle, at least that's been uploaded onto the What Replays website. And it should be no surprise that the greatest game of any tier 8 tank that's been uploaded to What Replays website would be in the BZ176, which is one of the most disgusting tanks in the game with the highest alpha damage at tier 8, especially with these premium rounds on this vehicle with 800 alpha damage. Now, Blast is going to show you an absolute masterclass of what it means to dominate the hill, and they are a player over my own heart as well when we see what they said at the start of the game, and that was win hill, win game, simple. You know what, that gets a thumbs up from me. The amount of battles that I've lost on mines purely because I haven't spawned in a vehicle that's fast enough and I have to sit there and watch a slow, trundly bad game because nobody's decided to contest the hill. Blast just went for it. Even in a tier 10 matchup, they're using a turbo here to be able to make the BZ176 with the rockets even faster. The base speed of this vehicle is 30 kilometers an hour. With rockets, you're going to get 50% more than that, which will be 45, as well as a big, meaty power-to-weight ratio increase when you're using the rockets. Although you only have 4 charges of those rockets when you are playing at tier 8, as Blast is with this BZ176. Now, if you use a turbo on the BZ176 instead, if you're using a regular turbo, you're going to be 4 kilometers an hour faster, 34, which is going to go up to 48 kilometers an hour when you are using the boost of this tank. However, if you're using a turbo inside the mobility slot, you got 35 kilometers an hour, which is going to go up to about 50 when you are using the big boost of this tank. However, if you use a Bond turbo on this vehicle, then you're actually going to be able to have 6 kilometers an hour flat boost, which is going to put you up to 36, which means that when you do boost that up as well, that you're going to be going at like 54 kilometers an hour. And that's because the turbo on this tank is boosting you by, when you're using the rockets, by the 50% of the base turbo speed as well. And that's why a turbo is a fantastic module to use on the BZ176. In addition to that, Blast has elected to go for the Bond gun rammer to really be able to pump up the rate of fire of this vehicle. And they're using a rammer directive as well on this tank, which will help by an extra 2.5%. All in all, this adds up to having an impressive damage per minute with a scary reload on the vehicle. To top it all off, Blast has decided to use vertical stabilizers on this tank. It's always tricky for me to be able to decide about, do I want to use the accuracy device or do I want to use vert stabs on a vehicle like this? When you need to snipe at weak points, or maybe you just need to snipe at vehicles at long range, the accuracy device does allow you to improve the vehicle's horrible .46 base. Although the vert stabs allow you to snap, although it doesn't look like Blast quite liked missing the side of that Centurion at long range there. Now, I mean, Blast is definitely, throughout this replay, going to give a strong opinion as to why it would be better to use the vert stabs on this vehicle. And in a close quarters combat map like this, mines, yeah, the vert stabs are going to be better than using an aiming device to be able to improve the accuracy. The only other thing you could use on this tank would be vent, which will give you a 3% accuracy and the 3% rate of fire boost. But yeah, I think Blast is definitely going to show that the gun handling on this tank clearly seems to outweigh the benefit of the minor boost of the vents. Alright, so Blast is, in the first 4 minutes of this game, is up to 5,000 damage. Look, this is a good game for a tier 10 tank, let alone a tier 8 tank playing against tier 10 and tier 9 vehicles. And remember, yeah, Blast is lolling in the chat. I'd be lolling too if I was in this kind of a monster performance so early on in the battle with so much left to do. Now remember, as Blast is playing at tier 8 against tier 9s and tier 10s, that means they're going to be getting bonus experience. When you are shooting vehicles that are higher tier, you're getting 10% extra experience per tier they are higher than your vehicle. This meant a huge amount back in the day when tanks sometimes had to meet vehicles that were 4 or 5 tiers higher than them. Doesn't mean so much now. One thing that I don't know is whether you get less experience for shooting tanks that are below your tier, or if it's no penalty. And if you know, please do let me know in the comments down below as to whether you actually get less experience for shooting tanks that are lower tier than you, rather than just more experience for shooting tanks that are higher tier than you. Alright, so Blast is just showing all of the power of the BZ-176, and that is thick frontal armor that is a pain to be able to deal with. It does have some weak points, you know, the lower plate is trash on this vehicle, and this part can be overmatched by all about 124mm caliber guns and larger, of which there are a large amount of them in a game like this. So the T-124 looked to see if they were going to be able to catch Blast coming around the corner, but oh man, that's a snapshot for 800 damage. You know, when you can shave off pretty much about 40% of the hit points of a tier 10 tank with a single shot in a tier 8 vehicle, you know your vehicle is pretty strong. At least when these shells actually connect. The only downside to these HE rounds on this vehicle is they have 225mm of pen, which isn't great for a tier 8 tank. And if there was like a Mouse, an IS-7, all of these kinds of tanks on the enemy team, and Blast wasn't just blasting away at the sides of these tanks, then this tank wouldn't look so cool. But oh my word, that is a disgusting shell into the side of the T-54 Mod 1 for 883 with a high roll. My goodness gracious. This is a game of the ages so far. Already at 7,500 damage, and with 8,000 hit points left on the enemy team, just how much higher can Blast go? You can see that Blast said in chat, yeah, play slow, guys. I wonder why Blast might want their team to play slow. Is it because he's probably just seeing it? You know when you have one of those kind of games, and it's just everything seems to be going really well for you, and you just hope that it will keep going like that? Must have been thinking like this could be one of the an account record, or even, as we're saying, like a world record with regards to tier 8 performance. Now there are some games on the What Replays website where there is more experience than this round. However, all of those games have happened when there's been a disconnect, and for some reason Wargaming servers screw up, and then everybody disconnects apart from one or two vehicles, and then they figure out everyone's AFK, and then they go in towards the enemy spawn and just manage to farm up. There are some monster games of tier 8 vehicles where they're doing something silly like 14,000 damage, where they've pretty much just managed to farm up the entirety of the enemy team after a server DC. But does that really count? No, I don't think it does. This game, however, this is truly against active players, as Blast is just trying to scope out to see if he can find the Foch at the back of the map. With enough view range as well, it's quite interesting that without coated optics or without the vents, even though this vehicle's got 380 meters base view range, even though Blast evidently has a good crew on this vehicle, they got 3 marks, so we'd be very surprised if they don't have things like situational awareness and recon. Blast isn't quite able to get the view range of this vehicle up enough to be able to have the max spotting distance in World of Tanks, which is 445. But of course, remember that you want to have slightly more view range than 445 to be able to counter out camo rating. So really, the sweet spot of view range in World of Tanks is about 460. Definitely, preferably with something like a vision system. But of course, if you start to go up towards that like 500 mark, then you really are countering even most medium tanks when they're moving, because you're starting to counter at least 10% camo rating in that scenario. Alright, so Blast's team is starting to make some serious mistakes. They're losing the middle of the map now, and it looks like Blast tank destroyers are just chilling at the back. With a couple of TDs and a medium tank over towards the west, Blast has to be careful here that they don't end up getting caught by the T-30 or the Char Future 4, as they could just come up on the hill. However, Blast, feeling confident that they're not going to do this, is instead hunting a tier 8 Czechoslovakian medium tank, who forgets which way they are facing. That is one of the mistakes that a lot of people make in World of Tanks. If they reverse out as soon as they fired and they try to get back into cover, they actually hold backwards, which further exposes their tank. Alright, so having dealt with the Skoda T27 with Blast's teammate the Foch helping them out, now Blast is in a scenario against a very dangerous tier 9 American tank destroyer, the T-30, who to all intents and purposes is using the 155mm caliber gun, which will overmatch the top of Blast's tank, have a very good chance of even going through the thickest part of the armor, which would be on the mid plate or the upper plate. And if they hit the lower plate, this is definitely going in. Blast is repeatedly asking for their team for help, hoping that one of the tank destroyers is going to come to provide a distraction and allow them to be able to deal with the T-30. But the longer the Blast takes right now, the more opportunity there is also going to be for the Char Future 4 or the T-124 to come up onto the hill. So Blast has changed their tone now, gone from hey, play slow, team, to now, hey, team, please come and bail me out of this situation. But I would probably feel the same way as well if I was up to 9,000 damage and 1,000 assistance in the first 10 minutes of this battle. Luckily, the Foch isn't going to press the hill with also the unspotted Borsig. They're going to be able to make their way down the slope. Although I do think that the fact that the Foch is spotted is probably going to distract the Foch on Blast's team. But actually, I'm wrong. The Foch doesn't get distracted and turn towards the west to deal with the other Foch, instead makes their way up here. Blast is going to put one into the side of the Char Future 4 and show just really fantastic play. That was very high-end stuff to have a planned retreat. A lot of players would have just got caught up on the hill and end up failing. But Blast not only manages to put in another 800 damage to a Char, they also fall back down the hill gracefully. How much longer does Blast have to aim? And wow, they got hit by the Foch just before Blast fires, now putting them over 10,000 damage dealt in this game with still 1,000 hit points left on the enemy team. How much higher can Blast go? They've already picked up a top gun. Will they be able to handle any more of the enemy team with a possible Radley Walters medal on the table? And this is it's just insane stuff. What great players can achieve in a BZ-176. This vehicle is a little bit of my kryptonite, really. I don't seem to be doing very well in this vehicle compared to a variety of other tanks. Although I have had a couple of good games. Definitely not anything like what Blast is having here. But I've had a few decent rounds. I think I've definitely got to practice about how to use these kind of ambush tanks or these really high alpha damage vehicles, and not to try and get into these all-in brawls and to have opportunities to escape. And Blast has shown us exactly how to do that in this game. And are they going to get the 8th kill? Oh, they are. Oh my word. Blast lets out an F yeah in the chat at the end, and well-deserved Blast. Absolutely well-deserved for what was one of the most insane games I have ever seen at tier 8 in World of Tanks. What a ridiculous battle, and irrelevant of the BZ-176 being one of the if not the most filthy tanks in the game currently, Blast just put out an utter masterclass of hill-based domination, irrelevant of the fact that they were a tier 8 in a tier 10 game. And when you do 11,000 damage, of which the majority of that was to higher tier vehicles, what kind of experience do you expect to get? This was 2,847 base experience. With a premium account, this was 4,271, which, as I said, excluding server crashes, is the highest tier 8 experience game of all time that has been uploaded to the What Replays website. And what's ridiculous about doing this amount of damage is even though Blast spent 122,000 credits on ammunition and 20,000 credits resupplying the premium consumable, they still made 389,000 credits profit, as all but one of those 160mm shells hit the target, and of those, every single one penetrated. So Blast, representing the Asia server, congratulations to you on one of the most disgusting but also biggest games of World of Tanks of all time. And thank you so much for representing the Asia server today and uploading your replay for the rest of the world to enjoy. I thoroughly did, which is why I wanted to feature it on my YouTube channel today, and I hope all of you out there enjoyed this video as well. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And if you're watching this video as it's released on Friday, I'm going live all day on twitch.tv/QuickyBaby with brand new token drops, so you can get a variety of things, including styles, 5x experience, premium time, consumables. So come along, have some fun, and get some unique rewards as well. So really looking forward to seeing you all live right now. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.